everyone. We are ready to get started. As you guys can see, we have two speakers here today. But before we kick things off, as always, feel free to ask questions along the way. I do have a lot of the questions that you guys already submitted. It looks like there's actually 49 of them, so quite a few. We'll probably get through maybe 10 of them or so, but raise your hand. They'll be more than happy to ask them and dive deeper into the topics that you guys care about. They're probably actually going to introduce themselves, but before they do, let's just welcome them to class. All right, so we'll start with Emily. Do you want to do a quick introduction of yourself?
Like what I do now or what I've done in the past? Or
Actually, so maybe if you could start at college. If you went to college or not, I'm not going to assume, even though I know. But maybe from then, how you got into the role that you are in today.
Ooh, I love it. Okay.
Yeah.
So I went to college at Whitman. I got a politics and Spanish background. We had, so definitely nothing to do with marketing or business. Then I did a little bit of consulting work, realized I wanted some business education, so I went back and got an MBA at Seattle U. And I thought I wanted to go into international business and work for Starbucks and do corporate social responsibility. And then I got completely hooked on startups because a mentor of mine introduced me to the business plan competition there. And I was like, but I don't have an idea. How can I do a business? And he's like, you can partner with entrepreneurs. So happy to talk all about those stories later. But moral of the story, I got connected with a company called Point Inside. And I helped them through the business plan competition. We ended up winning. And then we ended up raising our seed funding. And I was their second employee, grew it to 90 employees. Became the marketer because I was the only one with an MBA, and they were like, you do marketing. The worst class in my MBA was marketing. So, but I'm a very good startup marketer. So it's different than the corporate marketer. I don't think I'd be a very good Ford marketer or Procter & Gamble marketer. I've been at 5 startups since. And I really treat my career like a full stack marketer. So what are the different pieces I can keep adding? And everywhere I go, I try to learn as much as I can. And then when I'm not learning anymore, then I move to the next thing. So right now I'm the VP of marketing at Textio. We do augmented writing, and we want to change the way you write, basically. So what if you could know how the text you write would perform before you hit send or before you're done? That would be really powerful, right? I mean, you're all marketers. You're in this room. And so right now we're in the talent space. So you can write your job listing in Textio, and we can tell you what words to change in order to attract the talent you're trying to attract and close your role faster. I can't wait till we have Textio for marketing or for sales, and that's why I'm there. So really excited to be here today.
Okay, so did anyone read my LinkedIn profile, and does anyone know what my first career was? Anyone? I know someone asked a question about it, so I know one of you did because someone wrote it down as a question. Does anyone know? Okay, so my first career was as an opera singer. So I have 2 degrees in classical music, a master's and an undergrad degree. And I spent a lot of time in a practice room by myself, honing and perfecting a product that there was no market for. So I got out into the real world and would go to auditions, and I was one of 1,000 people competing for one role. When I did get a role, I would rehearse for 3 to 4 months, most nights a week, do 20 to 30 performances, and make an income in the thousands, like $1,000 to $4,000 for that kind of work. So it's a really good education in product, price, packaging, and markets, because there was just an incredible supply and very little demand. Who here has been to the opera? Okay, you guys are highly educated people, and that's just it's not the norm. So after that, I came out and I had to market myself as a professional musician. There was no one to do it for me. And then I organized a lot of events to make performance opportunities for myself. And through that journey, I got involved in a lot of nonprofit work. So I would do events that were fundraisers where I would bring myself and other performers, and we'd raise money for nonprofits. And over time, I started to gather more information and realize that I needed to make a switch, that I wanted to make a switch. And that's when I got into marketing, leveraging my events background as well as my kind of, marketing of myself background. And over time, I found my way into tech. And that is I feel my true home. It's very much the opposite. So as a marketer who can market and understand and synthesize and explain highly technical concepts, you are very much in demand, especially in a city like Seattle. So I've gone from, being one of 1,000 applying for a position to being highly in demand for a fairly rare skill set. So that's been a nice transition for me. So that's my story. I'm at my second Seattle-based tech startup now. It's called ENTRE. And we do data unification for marketing. Our customers are marketers, which is a real privilege because I get to build even more empathy for marketers while being a marketer. So that's my path.
So to kick things off, normally this is always a common question, but we rarely get to it for panels. So I want to make sure we talk about it. So as you're thinking about transitioning to different roles or marketing yourself, what advice do you think you would give to students to find their first job as a marketer in this startup or entrepreneurial kind of community that we have here?
Do you want to go first? I have to think about that question. Okay, so I think most startups, so we're focused on startups, right? Yeah. Okay, so most startups want people who are smart and learn quickly and are willing to work really hard for less pay, if I'm going to be really honest. There's often a stock incentive, but most startups are trying to do something new, hopefully, right? It's a new product in a new market. And so they don't always know what they're building. They don't always know the value of their product. And communication skills, writing skills, and thinking skills are paramount. That's, you want to come in, you want to be flexible, you want to be able to do a lot of different things. And startups need that. And I really think that there's a dearth of great marketers who can use their mind flexibly and do that kind of work. So I think if you can pitch yourself as a thinker, that's really sought after. You want to add to that?
Oh, yes. I have lots of thoughts here. Okay. It starts with your LinkedIn profile. You need a kick-ass LinkedIn profile. Be really thoughtful about your description in terms of how you describe who you are. And the amazing thing about Jennifer's course that you're all taking, you're all getting certified in Google Analytics. That is amazing. Get that on there. Get all the things you're learning in this course on there.
HTML?
Yes. Any of these, because we're looking for, can you check boxes of how you can support our teams? I am hiring. I have hired so many marketers. So the other piece, marketers, we kind of have, so how you are on social media is your brand. We are going to expect you to be way above like an engineer is on social media. So pick a channel that you want to be really great at. I've picked Twitter. I picked LinkedIn. I don't care what you pick. Pick a channel and practice marketing there. Learn some skills on your own. Like you can have your own blog. You can have your own YouTube channel. You can have, pick some places where you want to practice skills. Then you can use those as your portfolio. The other piece is I am shocked how many people do not, when they're applying for a job, they don't tell me why they want to work at Textio. I don't even look at your application if you don't tell me why you don't want to work at Textio. I don't care that you're amazing. I care about if you're amazing, if you want to work at Textio. Does that make sense? So do your research. It is shocking to me how few people, it's probably a third, actually tell me why they want to work at my company. If you tell me why you want to work at my company, you send me an end mail or you get a referral from someone to tell me you're amazing, I will call you. Even if you're underqualified, you will at least get that first call. If you're underqualified for my role, but I'm impressed by you, I will make introductions for you to my friends who want to hire someone just like you. So there's a lot of this is super tactical, but It is amazing to me how few people actually do this stuff. So you can really stand out if you do. Like I had a woman yesterday who was a referral from UW. A friend of mine is her advisor here and made the introduction. She sent me a really smart, like, here's why I want to meet you. I don't have a role for her, but I met with her because she had a referral. I was super impressed by her, and I'm considering making a role for her because I'm like, I want her on my team. So there's a lot of stuff you can do, and that's the thing about startups. We often don't know who we need, and then we're like, oh, you're amazing. I want you on my team. I will create a role for you. So do your homework. I'm sure you guys have learned all about the GeekWire 200. That's a great place to start in terms of what startups you can go after. And then reach out very thoughtfully, and chances are and like also don't be afraid to hear no. Like it's a numbers game too, but thoughtful numbers game.
Yeah. And along that lines too, so we actually haven't talked about the GeekWire 200. That's always my recommendation too, especially if you want to just learn about some of the tech companies around Seattle. It's just a curated list, easy to look at and categorize and look at different filters based off of the different types of business you're interested in. But another question that always comes up too is, how do you start building your professional network? Like, what are ways that you can find the right people or get introduced or even reach out yourself in the first place?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have a lot of advice. Yes. So your peers are your network. So a lot of people from Seattle U, from Whitman, we eventually will work together, even if it's 10 years from now. So you definitely want to connect with your peers. You have amazing professors to connect with. You have advisors. Basically, everyone you know you should connect with on LinkedIn. Okay. That's for people that you actually know. I'm an introvert, and so like going to really large like meetups is not my favorite thing in the world. It's not where I'm like really strong. I'm much better at like, let's meet for coffee. That's how we met. And so one thing I've done, so Twitter is actually a really amazing platform. And there's a community of marketers. So I've changed my word from stalking to researching because it's a more positive word. But you can follow people on Twitter and get a lot of like informal mentorship from them. So even if you started with, say, all the speakers that you have from this course, if you followed us all on Twitter and you put them on there's this thing called Twitter lists that you can create. So I have a ballers list. Both of these wonderful women are on it. And literally, when I was starting to build my network of like senior marketers, I kept adding these amazing people to this list. And then sure enough, I see who Jennifer follows. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know about that person. That person also looks interesting. Add them to the list. I don't know that person, but maybe Jennifer could introduce me to that person. I found out about events. I got free tickets to go to conferences that I wanted to go to. I know what books people are reading. So it's a great way to like accelerate your learning. And we're all on Twitter. Like a lot of marketers are on Twitter.
I always think Twitter is like the water cooler for marketers. There's just a lot of conversation that happens on Twitter versus any other social network for some reason.
Totally.
So I think Emily covered all the amazing tactical things you can do, and that's really great, and you should focus on those things. The one thing I'll add is there's a lot of superficial things you can do to network, but at the end of the day, it's a very small town, and people will get to know you. And there are people on my list that come up, and I say, please never hire that person. And it's because they're not nice. Like, they're not nice people. You don't want to work with them again. And, it's not, you can't sidestep, like, doing great work and being great. And, of course, you want to always keep up with your network and follow people. But, every day you come to work and every day you come to class, you make an impression and people are watching and taking notice. And, there are people that I never worked directly with that made a very negative impression of me. This is sounding really negative. I mean it to be positive. Be great. But just don't forget the power of the real relationships you're creating and who you're meeting. And you, like Emily said, it's a pretty small community once you get down to it and you start meeting people, and everyone here that you met in class, you'll meet again. And so be kind, be thoughtful, lend a hand when someone needs help. They may be hiring you someday for a job. So keep that in mind.
So,
Oh, we have a question.
but do we have a question? Perfect.
So this is for the both of you. What's an example of a good interaction versus a bad interaction, like a networking event or like an email being sent to you?
You mean like I keep thinking this is a microphone. It's going to amplify my voice. It's not. You mean like if someone's reaching out for like as a cold touch, what's the best way to do that?
And what's the bad?
I have really specific answers. Okay. I have had everything under the sun in terms of how people have reached out, and it is dramatic. So let's start with email. The first is do some research. Tell me why you want to meet with me, why you picked me. Is it a referral? Did you read something I posted? Like, why are you interested? Like, we're all so egotistical. Like, tell me why you want to talk to me, right? I am super busy. I got asked for 15 coffees last week. Why should I meet with you and not someone else? The other part is, will you make it really easy for me to do it? Like, offer to come to my office, offer to do a phone call. I really don't have time to go to coffee with you. Can't drink 15 cups of coffee a day. So if you do, like, go with her. No, but it's about being really thoughtful. And the other piece is, I've had some people come and try to have coffee, and they literally come and they're like, hi. And they sit down and I'm like, what did you want to talk about? Oh, I wanted to get to know you. Great. What did you want to talk about? How can I help you? So come really prepared. The woman I met with the other day, a UW student, she's a senior, she's graduating in 2 weeks. She had a list of questions. She had done her homework on my company. She had done homework on me. They were very thoughtful, and I was like happy to riff with her. She had her own opinions about my company. She'd tried our product. It was like, whoa, I can learn from you too. Like, this is a mutual conversation. So I think a lot of it comes to research and thoughtfulness. And again, you can really stand out when you do that.
Okay, so I feel like I always say the woo-woo general thing, but I'll do it again, which is just, to me, there's as marketers, like, we can add so much fluff. And I just, to me, I care about authenticity and like what is really happening. And I don't love the idea of, reaching out for, like, if you don't know why you're doing it, don't do it. And that's in line with what you're saying too, I think. It's like we're told we have to network. Look, if you hate networking, I'm going to tell you right now, you don't have to do it necessarily. It's great if you love it and it brings you joy, but there are many ways to skin a cat, and there are many pathways to be successful. And I know people who, have built a very robust network just of people that they've naturally interacted with and that they have authentic connections with. And again, it's a leg up if that's easy for you and part of who you are anyway. But it's certainly not, in my opinion, if it's not real for you and you're doing it to check a box, it's not going to work anyway. So.
Sort of along the lines of that, outside of that first interaction, if you have some really good interaction with someone, they really make an impact on you, how do you know you're not asking for too much from them?
Good question.
I mean, I think most people who are successful that you want to be talking to are really good at saying no. So I would just ask and be respectful if they say no. But, I think it's okay to ask. Most people are impressed if you're asking and following up, and, I think they'll give you an indication of whether or not it's too much.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I also appreciate follow-ups, because you'll get lost. Like I'm sure we all have this. You could get lost in our inbox. So I totally appreciate follow-up, and I agree. We'll say no if we can't. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, like shifting gears a little bit, but I think essentially now like a marketing role is becoming ever more like technical than in the past. How do you guys balance the technical side with more of the people side, in your approach to like following data versus reaching out to customers and things like that?
Such a good question. Would you like to start?
No.
Okay. Such a good question. I think you're absolutely right. Like, you nailed it. There's a lot more marketers now that are even coming from an engineering background. So I think it's on us to stay relevant with both. So for me, like, I read the really nerdy books that are on the revenue data analytics side. I'm running a lot of the experiments, a lot of the tests. I also have people on my team that are way better at it than I am. But I need to be able to speak the language, ask the right questions, and be able to dig into the data. And then at the same time, like, as a marketer, if you're not talking to your customers, or you're not at least watching how your customers use your software or your product, like, you're not doing your job. So I think really it has to be both sides. The best marketers, I think, can do both. And then you can be better at one than the other. I think I'm better at the customer side than the data side, but if I can't speak data, if I can't make sure I have a very technical AI machine learning and natural language processing product. If I don't get it and can't sell it, then that's a problem. And then if I don't know all the sales data metrics, that's a problem. If I don't know how to run experiments, or I can't make sense of the data about how people are using my product, that's a problem. But now I'm definitely a generalist, so I can have people who are exceptional at data analytics, who are exceptional at customer marketing, but they all need a piece of the other. So, is that what your experience is?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think you nailed it. Of course, that as a marketer, there's these pillars, which are the disciplines, especially at a technical startup company, right? And so you've got your site and SEO, and using Google Analytics to understand how your site is performing. And then you've got sort of a content pillar, all the materials we're creating. You've got a product marketing pillar, and Ashish, who you know at the company I work for, he's our head of marketing. And he always says that you kind of need a superpower in one of those. So you're kind of your focus area. And then if you want to be a marketing, and you can always stay in your lane there, or if you want to eventually be the head of marketing somewhere, then you need to have your superpower and then a generalist and understanding of everything else. The title of this is about being the first marketer at a startup or a company. And so you do need to be able to kind of dabble in all of it. I would say too that this idea of data and analytics, like, for someone who doesn't feel like they have a technical background, it sounds a lot scarier than it is. Like, there's a lot of amazing tools out there, and like, go on YouTube and watch some tutorials, and like, you'll get there. Like, if you graduated with algebra in middle school, you can do it. Like, it's not that hard, right? I think what's a lot harder, that probably you guys all have a lot of talent in, is storytelling and empathy, right? And that's what I think a marketer has to have as their bread and butter and their like home base is, can you tell stories? Can you empathize with the customer? And there's a wide gamut of products out there. So if you can't roll with AI, machine learning, and natural language processing, and not everyone can, and that's okay. I still think there's a lot of amazing products out there that you can be involved in and make a huge impact. But don't be afraid. Like, it's learnable. Again, I was an opera singer for a decade, and I do marketing for a startup that is super technical, and how did I do it? I asked a million questions. I used all my resources. I read 1,000 articles, and I dove in headfirst with no fear. And that's, the biggest thing is not to be afraid. Like, you can do it. It's hard, but break it down into steps and learn it. It's doable. So.
Yeah.
My question is a little bit off topic, and a question that has been that I've always come up with, and I see it on the news all the time. You see like big companies like Google and Vice News where women are not receiving equal pay as men. Do you see this problem in the startup world, especially in Seattle?
Ooh.
No, it's great. It's a great question.
Me too. I love it.
I don't, I'll just have a very short answer. I don't feel like I have a lot of visibility into it. So I think to start to get the sense of trends, you've got to have access to the numbers. And I trust the reporting that it is true that people aren't receiving equal pay. There's not a lot of transparency in business around pay, right? So there's no like dashboard I can look at to see who's getting paid what. So I believe it's true. I don't have a lot of personal experience with altercations or things happening where people are demanding different pay and bringing it up as a problem. I personally think transparency is good. I think, as a community, we should push for more transparency, and I think that that's part of the solution. I also know that people think that comp is a really loaded, difficult thing, and transparency has its own set of problems too. So I don't have a good answer for you. I think it's a great question for us all to keep considering. I don't know if you want to add more.
Yeah, so I've had moments in my career where one example is one of my first roles. I was at a company for 4 years. I came in during the 2008 downturn, and then I helped find my replacement, and she came in. Literally, I found her. We had the same background. We both had an MBA. I had been at the company 4 years. She came in brand new, making $20K more than me. So that's not like a woman thing. She's a woman. I'm a woman. I think that was I didn't know. I'm being super transparent here. That was I didn't know what my skill set was worth in the market. So one thing I do now is with peers, we actually talk about ranges. I might not say this is the exact amount of money I make, but we talk about ranges. I have mentors I can go to be like, hey, this is the offer. How does this stack up? It's compared not to what I would make at Microsoft. A startup is not Microsoft. It's not Amazon. You're not it's very different things. But there's ranges based on the level of the amount of funding you have, whether you're pre-revenue, post-revenue. How much revenue do you have? Who are your, there's tiers of rings where you should, there's bands of what you could be making. And so should you always negotiate? Yes. Could I say, I haven't had the personal experience where a man came in making more than me. I've had experience where I know I've been underpaid because I then found out what other people made. And I was like, oh my God, how did I let that happen? I know at my company today, we're super, I was literally seeing, I was given, based on our portfolio, I literally was sent the spreadsheet. Here's how we came up with your comp based on us being B2B in Seattle, Series B, here's the range. And I could literally see what peer companies were making. I was like, oh, that seems really fair. I hope more companies do stuff like that. And I came in at a VP level, so I don't know if we had the data to do that at every level, but that's a big thing I think to think about in your careers is, what is fair based on your skill set, and hopefully gender or your ethnic background or all sorts of factors, whether you have children or not, your age, hopefully none of those are coming into play. But I don't think I can speak to the overall. There is unfairness in some places, absolutely. I haven't personally experienced it.
This is unrelated, but do you suggest us to gain some working experiences before pursuing a master's degree or MBA, or do you suggest us to go to
100%, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And for how long?
I did 2 years. I don't know that there's a perfect, I would say at least have a year or two at least, because then I loved my accounting class. I would never have wanted to take an accounting class otherwise. But then I was like, oh my gosh, I see why this is so relevant. And I really wanted a project management. And again, I came from liberal arts, poli-sci, go poli-sci. But I had no, you guys might be business majors or entrepreneurship majors. So you're getting courses that I never had access to. So take this with a grain of salt. But I think having some experience, what you're missing even more, and you can appreciate it even more. And if you can work what's interesting is now I'm looking at people who are applying to roles, and experience is really important in what I look for. It's very hard for me to hire a grad with zero experience, even if they're an MBA grad or a master's grad. If they have no on-the-ground experience, it's very hard. That's a much bigger risk for me as an employer than if they've worked during their master's, if they have some working experience, I'm like, oh, great. I could call someone and see what they were like as like an employee, as a teammate, in addition to class projects and that sort of thing. Consulting projects, if you can do, I'm sure you guys are doing those, but that or the business plan competition is like real experience that as an employer, I'm like, that is great. Like you get to work with companies, they get to see what you're like. So if you can do any of that stuff, like that's a huge leg up too.
I think we have a question over here.
Yeah, so social media has kind of been something that's kind of evolved and bloomed over like the last 10 years as you guys have started your startup companies and stuff. So I was just wondering, like the effectiveness that you guys have kind of been shown, like using that platform for your companies.
You want to start or you want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. I think it's all about picking the right channels for your business. I've been mostly B2B companies, so like Snapchat is probably not going to be the right, medium for us. LinkedIn is huge. LinkedIn ads is huge for us. Facebook even, because the targeting's so good. So I think it's really, I think it comes down to knowing your customer exceptionally well and where do they spend their time. Where do they hang out? Where do they learn? Where do they consume information? And if one of those is a social network or a social media platform, which probably is the answer, then how do we communicate in the right way with them there? So like if you sell to marketers, they're on Twitter. Okay, I'm sure you're doing work on Twitter. I sell to talent leaders. They're all over LinkedIn. So it's like really knowing your audience and then tailoring your copy or your content or your messaging to that exact, like how they consume content there, I think is important.
Yeah, I don't know that I have much to add except that I think it sort of feels like this stuff doesn't change that quickly. But I actually feel like it does change pretty quickly, and how these different platforms are being used and how people think about them. So, just to build on what Emily already said, just stay alert and keep understanding kind of the underpinnings of how these platforms work. We work with marketers who more and more are like they have these really embedded technologies that help them leverage ads across the internet, and very rapidly that entire tech stack is becoming obsolete around them, and they're not aware of it. And so one of my jobs is to help educate them around the fact that Facebook and these social media platforms know people really well, and they have really robust profiles with a ton of information about individual people. And so they can do a whole different kind of advertising and targeting than all the older systems that most consumer brands are using today. So it's just, it's fascinating to sort of watch and act as an advisor to people who are not necessarily paying attention to, like Facebook. Hasn't Facebook been the same for 10 years? It isn't. It's changing very rapidly. There's Amazon now has a very robust ad product or suite of products. And so people are innovating a lot and changing a lot. So just keep on the pulse of that.
I think that's a really good point. Yeah. I think that's what's so much fun to be a marketer is what we're working on every 6 months changes. Like all the channels that were working for me 6 months ago, probably half are not working anymore. So you always have to be experimenting and coming up with what's the next thing. Or what's the new way to do the thing I was doing? Because like LinkedIn ads for us 2 years ago were amazing. They worked so well and they were so cheap. Now they are so expensive. So it's like you always have to be trying like what's that next thing, and that's why I freaking love marketing, because it's like it doesn't get boring ever.
Yeah.
We have one more question too.
Man.
Do you want to add a thought?
Oh, yeah. I mean, just kind of full circle to that idea of like what really counts as a marketer and how to be successful, to me, is constantly being a thinker, constantly, assessing and analyzing. And that's why I could come in from, no background, no nice degree like you had, because I came hungry to think and learn every day, not learn it and then like close the textbook and then go to work and like do my thing every day. No, every day I'm figuring it out fresh, and that's fun for me.
Last question.
Can you guys talk briefly about kind of the difference between being a marketer for a startup and then being a marketer for a more bigger established company?
In a nutshell, I think the larger the company, the more narrow each role becomes. So the smaller the company, the more generalist you have to be. So if you're the first marketer, you have to do all disciplines a little bit. So I think, this isn't always true, but at bigger companies, there are often bigger teams and more specialization. So I would say that's one of the biggest things. Comp is obviously a difference. Like most big companies can pay you better. And then it really is team by team, right? Like you can find teams. I interviewed a couple years ago at Zillow, and they were starting up a new team, and they were looking for people with startup experience because they wanted people to kind of come and develop something really new. So you can find that at big companies as well. That's a nutshell.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to slice it. You can be a B2B or a B2C marketer. You can be a big company. You can be a startup marketer. You can, and for me, I pick startups because I really like autonomy. I really like to know that what I do today matters to the business today. And so I like seeing my impact, and I like the amount I get to learn, and I love that I am building, so the difference is, if you go to Microsoft, you're building a product that 1 billion people will use. If you go to a startup, maybe 1,000 people will use, depending on your product, right? So it's kind of like the differences of scale you care to use. But the biggest thing for me is I love to learn constantly. And I like to see that my work is impacting immediately. I like it. I love that feeling of, oh my gosh, I changed the direction of our company today. It's really powerful. So that's why I've picked startups.
I could copy and paste that last paragraph that you said. My husband is currently working at Apple, and because he was at a startup that got acquired, and so he sort of has his golden handcuffs to stay there, which is something you'll all learn about someday. We talk in the evening over a glass of wine about whether his company is slowly dying or not. And it's not clear, right? Boots on the ground. I know how my company is doing. You know how your company is doing, right? We every day both get to impact it, but also know. And that's so invigorating because you know that what you do every day matters. And if you're at a big, you're on a huge ship and you're trying to steer it, but your contribution is so little, it's a really different experience. And if you want to know that you're bringing value to the table, a startup's a great choice.
Cool. All right. Thank you for all your questions, and thank you for coming in today.
Of course.